And you are live.
Thank you. If I could call public service to order, if I could get approval of our previous meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve previous meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We have two pieces coming before us, but before we do that, I want to see if I could get an update from Chris and Jim on the snow removal. As you know, the last couple of days have been trying, and if you guys could give us an update where we are on snow plowing and the plan for the upcoming snow, I'd appreciate it.
Well, absolutely, Madam Chairman and members of the committee, all of council. I can provide an update to what happened last weekend, what the current state we're in with the snow and ice. So obviously, we all lived it last weekend. We knew it was coming. A few weekends before that, we had a forecast of 11 inches, which we thought, we were following that storm a few weeks back, and then it changed up, and we only got 2 or 3. So this storm, they started about a week before, and obviously this storm with Izzy, it started down in Florida. Unfortunately, those tornadoes had hit down there. Then it came up through the Midwest and dumped a bunch of snow all the way from Iowa. And then once we knew it was going to hit us sometime on Sunday afternoon. So with that in mind, we prepared for the 14 to 16 inches, even though at the time they said it could be 6 to 10, and that changed rapidly. We, in this council, did approve an expenditure a few months back. We bought a bunch of extra parts, hoses, plow blades, tires. And the reason why we had to do that, as we explained then, we had ordered 17 trucks that were approved through the capital budget, 10 5-ton new trucks and 7 1-ton trucks. And back in 19, when we experienced what some people call snowmageddon, we decided to outfit our 10 1-tons and put each one of those trucks in a ward for complaints. Well, the money that was appropriated back then was just to outfit those trucks. Those trucks were not new trucks, okay? We were putting plow equipment on existing trucks. So we've been looking at replacing those, and those 7 from last year were going to be 7 of those 10 that we were going to replace. So COVID hits, things get back ordered. We did not receive any of those 10 trucks, 5 tons, or any of the 7 1-ton trucks. So we're still working with our existing equipment. So we did talk about brine a few months back. I think it was Councilwoman Holland asked, where does our brine come from? And there was an article. We make our own brine from the rock salt we purchase with Akron City Water. We had an abundance of that brine. So Jim and the guys and gals out there, we actually started on Saturday. Actually, we started on Friday at 4 a.m. And we decided at 4 a.m. on Friday, we looked at the forecast. There was not going to be any rain or snow before the event. So we knew the roads would be dry. So we went ahead and brined every street in Akron. That's first priority, second priority, and third priority. We drove through and we brined every street. So fast forward to Saturday, we started looking, we had all our trucks ready to go. And then on Sunday, I believe it was Sunday, I think it was, or actually it was Saturday, we started applying salt to every street just to pre-salt, because we knew, and if you guys remember in 19 what happened, when that snow got bonded to that asphalt, we were not getting it off. And we had those extremely cold temperatures. So we had that snow, and that created, it does create a hazard, but we could not clean the streets in a timely manner. Well, we did have weather on our side in this storm because everyone's different. It was a bit warmer, but by pre-salting, and we knew when we were going to get 6 to 10, but preparing for the 14 to 16 inches, this could be the biggest storm we had in 25 years. And guess what? It was. This was the largest storm in one 24-hour period in 25 years in Akron. So we pre-salted everything. Then we come to Sunday. They said it was going to start around 7 or 8, which we were fully staffed, our highest, what we call level 4. It started, a few flurries, light snow around 3:30 or 4, but then at 7 p.m., that's when it really started snowing. So we were in routes, and we were going to service those routes throughout the storm. So our shifts, as you know, are noon to 8, and then from 8 p.m. to midnight is always overtime. And then from midnight to 4 a.m. is overtime. And then we have another shift come in at 4 a.m. So being that it's a holiday, we had everybody pre-scheduled all the way through Tuesday, and we had very good participation. And as the mayor said on the radio, we really want to thank our employees because they really stepped up in this event. So some worked 16 hours, some worked 12. So we started plowing and salting our first priority streets. Like I said, Sunday at midnight, we had a shift change, and then we brought a new crew in on Monday at midnight. And part of that participation we had was from our sanitation workers, because we had a delay one day, and that was scheduled, that we were not going to pick up trash on MLK Day. So we had some of that staff in too, in some of the smaller trucks, and some of the supervisors out there helping us just spot check and see how our drivers were doing. We did talk about a simulator and how do we prepare these drivers. Well, it's hard to prepare for whether it's 10 inches or 16 inches of snow if you've never plowed. One division alone has 30 full-time employees, which is our Parks division. 9 of those 30 have never plowed before, especially in a big truck. So this was a learning curve. We don't want them to go fast. We want them to be efficient. So we started with that event on Sunday night. It's shift change due to COVID. We didn't have this in our 9-point plan. There was nothing about COVID in the 9-point plan. So, sanitizing the truck when they finished their route. And then the new person that went in that truck was to wipe down that truck again, just to prevent any, cross contamination. So that took a little bit of time. It's shift change. And if you remember Monday morning, now after Sunday at midnight, it was really coming down. Okay. Some say it was 2 inches an hour. So it was really coming down between, I would say the heaviest snow was from 10 p.m. till 5 or 6 in the morning, which was Monday morning. So we worked right through it. Probably about 10 or 11 a.m. on Monday morning, the snow pretty much stopped. Okay. So at this point, I would say all our first priority streets, now some are 4-lane roads, at least had 1 lane passable. And Akron Fire and Akron Police gave us, a bunch of kudos about keeping these streets open so they can maneuver around the city. We kept going with our first priority streets. The streets that were first priority that only have 2 lane, those drivers automatically went into the second priority streets. Now, this was still on Monday. And at this point, talking to the snow and ice patrols, and now we've got this 16 inches on the ground, we deployed contractors. Okay, we automatically on Monday, we called them. They had already had some of their maps. Jim refreshed their maps to say, listen, we need to get some help in here. And it wasn't so much for road graders, because our first priority streets were in pretty good condition. At least they were passable. We decided at this point, we need to load out some of this snow. So as we're pushing this snow and piling it up, we went into the business districts, the higher traveled areas, and had these contractors with dump trucks, backhoes, loaders start loading out this snow. And then we told them where to dump, whether it was a parking lot that we knew we weren't going to use till spring, or we do have some dump sites around where to place this snow. The snow wasn't placed near a sewer. The snow was not dumped into the river. It's placed in areas where we could stockpile it. And then we're going to need Mother Nature some help on melting some of this snow. So we're still into Monday. And then, excuse me. So now we're 24 hour. I mean, like I said, we that snow event. The snow stopped around 11 a.m. Okay, so what we did, we worked that storm all the way through till Monday at midnight. We were in the second priority streets. And then Tuesday at 12 a.m. or Monday at, this would be Tuesday morning, we started in our third priority streets. Basically about 13 hours after the snow stopped, we were already into the third priority streets. The drivers are driving from one, let's just call them residential, from one residential street to another. They could see some snow got pushed out, but maybe a private contractor, or because they're out there working the parking lots too. And, you know, sometimes these private contractors, there's nowhere to put it. So they'll push it out in the street. So our drivers were bouncing back and forth a little bit from third priority back into secondary, back into first priority streets to maintain this, the streets to be open. So 12 hours after starting third priority streets, we were about 25% complete of our, let's call them residential streets. Now, at this point, I'm sure all of you are taking phone calls, okay? There's 12 or 16 inches in these residential streets. It's very difficult for our public to move around. And I could tell you this, we got the calls too. What was happening was, like I said, Mother Nature was working on our side. We pre-salted, that didn't let the snow bond to that asphalt. The sun came up Tuesday, it warmed up a little bit. And when we plowed off those residential streets, they opened right up to pavement. I mean, they were wide open, but one block over, you might still have 16 inches of snow, okay? And people are like, what's going on? Why haven't they got to my street? But we just kept working through the event. 24 hours after starting those third priority streets, we were about halfway through. And then 49 hours after everything was done, we were 75% complete. And then we finished up, we did another shift change on Wednesday. And by Wednesday morning, pretty much every street was open. We were communicating with APS through the whole event. Pretty much every school was closed on Tuesday. When we talked to them on Tuesday night about Wednesday, our biggest concern was these children and the sidewalks not being cleared. And all we thought was, with a pile of snow from the road to the sidewalk, maybe 2-3 feet high, we just couldn't see these children walking in the street. It wasn't going to be safe. Okay. We needed more time to get the contractors in there to load out the corners. The crossing guards on the APS side were fine, but what they were telling us, when the kids crossed the street to the private side, there was nowhere for the kid to land. He couldn't climb the thing. So we deployed sewer and water. Thank God we didn't have any water main breaks. We had both of those departments out there loading out snow. So we brought in their dump trucks, their backhoes, city employees to help load out the snow. Now there's still a lot of snow out there, okay? But basically, Wednesday morning, we were okay. We worked that storm all day Wednesday. There again, Mother Nature helped out. It went up to 45 on Wednesday, and it really helped us get the snow clear. Now I could tell you, the snow event we're in now, we didn't have that much, probably 3 or 4 inches, but we don't have the temperatures we had last week. Last night, it was down into the single digits. But we did go into third priority because we thought with these cold temperatures, we did, you know, typically we won't go into third priority. We get 5-6 inches, but every storm I said is different. And with those cold temperatures we're going to have the next couple of days, we decided to go into the third priority. So we were in the third priority in the middle of the night this morning. Obviously it's snowing again. So we're back into first priority streets to maintain their open. We'll go into our second priority streets, but we did put down some material in those third priority streets this morning. So I would hope none of you received any calls or very infrequent this morning about this event, but I've done a lot of talking. I'll take any questions, but there's some things that we are looking at to do. I know in that event, and believe me, we say this event was the biggest one in 25 years. We all know it could happen next week. Okay. We know it's not going to be another 25 years. So we want to improve the communication to the public. We want to improve the communication between all of you that are taking the calls, and somehow, you know, maybe we're thinking of a separate email for you to goes right to the snow center. Not maybe the snow center people are operating they're directing, but maybe a supervisor or multiple supervisors. So someone can see that email and get back to you guys in a timely manner that someone has saw your request. And we can identify or address the problem. One thing we thought with 311, people were calling 311. It was getting overwhelmed. We're talking about maybe putting a message on there. We knew we were going to do every street. We knew in this event we were going to have to hit every street. There was no doubt about it. We have 16 inches of snow. Should there be just a blanket, you call 311, you get this message. Obviously, if it's an emergency, call 911. Okay, that's what they say. But the next thing could have said, we are going to plow every street. Okay, you do not have to leave your name and your number and all this. We're going to get every street. And then just follow up with communication, tell people where we're at. We're 25% through, we're 50% through, we're 75% through. As obviously on Wednesday, 48 hours after the event, pretty much we were doing cleanup work. We had some issues with some dead end streets. We had some issues with some corners. We had some issues with some windrows. Sure we did. You have a lot of snow. But then again, we had a lot of new drivers, okay, and they're learning. But we're going to get better and continue to improve. But all in all, I think our employees did a heck of a job. I mean, we talk about COVID. We talk about all the things that we're going through, not only at work, but at home. I think our employees really stepped up and did a great job. So with that, I will take any questions, Madam President,
I'll take that.
Madam Chairman.
Okay, Chris, I have a couple questions before I go to Councilwoman Holland. So, maybe for the newer council members and maybe for residents who may be listening in, I understand when you talk about first priority streets and second priority streets, and I appreciate you and Jim for even coming to one of my meetings one year and explaining what that means to the residents. I think it would help to sort of kind of give them an idea, what do you mean by that? So when I tell a resident we have to hit the main thoroughs and the brick streets and hills, they don't understand that. So maybe if you could put it maybe in a context where they could understand that.
Sure. Well, first priority in main routes, let's talk about that, because y'all know we have a couple expressway routes we still do. So divided highways, main thoroughfares, arterials, collectors, metro bus routes, the streets that surround and serve our hospitals, our schools, and our hills. Okay, Merriman Road, Memorial Parkway, not Merriman Road, but Memorial Parkway, Smith Road Hill, those type of hills. Those are always first priority streets. Euler, Brick Street, like Euler. Those are our first priority streets. Those are almost 1,000 lane miles. So we have 1,922 lane miles that we have to cover. Out of that 1,922, almost 1,000 is those expressway routes and those first priority. It's about half of our routes. Okay. Then we go to second priority. Those are our collector streets. So they're not high, as high as traveled as the main streets and the Arlingtons and the Talmadges and the Copley Roads. But those collector streets that feed into those streets that possibly are probably still maybe a bus route, but not a higher traveled bus route. Those are our second priority streets. And then after that, we have our third priority streets. Our third priority streets are mostly our residential streets, but a collector street or a second priority could be a residential street too. So it's about 1,000 miles for first, 160 miles of second priority, and then 370 of our third priority streets. Now, one thing we strive to when we set this up, we don't want a resident going a mile to get to a primary route, okay? We're really hoping within 2 or 3 blocks, they can go from their third priority street, if that's where they live, and they'll either get to a second priority or a first priority street. Now, when you have 16 inches of snow, it's difficult to go 2 blocks, okay? Now, this morning, it wasn't difficult to go to 2 blocks, okay? But that's why we prioritize to get them as quick as they can, efficiently as they can, to one of those higher service streets so they can maneuver through the city.
Okay. Last 2 questions. You touched on the 17 trucks, and because of COVID, they weren't received. Do you have a idea when we would be receiving those trucks?
I hate to say it, but it looks like 2023, correct, Jim?
Yeah, that's correct. We're following up with them. They were saying 18 months to 24 months on the lead time. So we'll get what we can when we can get them.
Okay. And a last question. I know that the service staff is working around the clock. I know in 2019 we ended up hiring some subcontractors to help move some of the snow. Are we doing that this time as well?
On the event we're in currently?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
currently we're not. The only thing I would like to add, with the task force, we looked at the business case of doing those 8 expressway routes, and we thought for the money we're generating and what we're giving up, we decided to give up those expressway routes, except Route 8 and 224, because those are in our jurisdiction. We don't have that lane mile agreement anymore. So we have those bigger trucks doubled up, whether it's expressway route or one of our first priority streets, to give it higher service. So that was part of the task force to eliminate that ODOT agreement.
Okay. Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much, Mr. Luddle, for your remarks so far today, but really for all that you've handled for the past week, and for my part, especially the past couple of days. You know what I'm talking about. I have so much appreciation for what your department does, and I also want to express my thanks to Jim Hall, who is always available to me in so many ways when it comes to issues relating to things like street conditions. I feel that time is a great healer, and that to the extent anyone in Ward 1 had issues a week ago, we've moved on, and now we have fresh issues as the snow falls today. It's helpful to understand how the streets are broken down into priority zones. And what I'm wondering, and I've had a number of questions, is whether there is available to the public the ability to see where one street is in terms of second priority or third priority. Is there a paper somewhere that would reflect this? Is that something that a member of the public could get?
We're working to that, Councilwoman Holland. We can work with you on our GIS to show you the different levels of service broken down by ward, okay? And then we can show you what we're going to be rolling out, so people know if they're on a first, second, or third priority street. We could actually, we get back in person, we could do a presentation at one of your meetings with the GIS, but unfortunately, by the time, if we get back to a meeting, no one's going to care about the snow, hopefully, so that's how it goes. But we are working that way with a front facing website. We've been going through some upgrades with our website. We did recently upgrade all our trucks to a new tracking. Our 2G or 3G, whatever it was going to expire. We went with AT&T. That hasn't been fully developed yet, so that has really slowed down our technology about getting it out to the public. But eventually, we're working that way.
Fair enough. On the point about 311, it's consistently my experience, and feedback from Ward 1 kind of bears this out, that the online reporting is far and away the most effective in terms of seeing results over and over and over again. This is what I hear. And I think it is consistent with that clear messaging, seems to help a great deal in terms of right sizing expectations. When folks know what's going on, I think that it allows everybody to take a deep breath and get okay with things as they are. So I appreciate the messaging that is provided about the status of things, and I think the ward does as well. Along those lines, and I don't want to step on the chairwoman's agenda, but we did have some excitement in Ward 1 this weekend. And I don't know if now's the time for comments on that or at another point in this meeting, but not unrelated to last week's extreme weather. And I do have good news. I'm told that electrical service has been restored. That just happened while you were speaking, Mr. Luddle. So that's good news. But either now or sometime in this meeting, I'm hoping to have some remarks from you, and wanted to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your leadership in dealing with these two really big events over the weekend. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. I think it'd be maybe prudent if we take all the snow and ice questions first, and I'll go to the other events, Madam Chair, but I'll do whatever you choose.
Yeah, that's fine that way. Councilman Malik and then Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Luddle. Like Councilwoman Holland, I want to thank every last member of the Service Department staff, including you, Mr. Aiken, Mr. Hall, and everyone, and of course also the mayor. I thought that this storm was handled. It showed the way in which it was handled showed a lot of improvement from 2019. I heard that from residents. I thought, and I kept telling folks, for the immense amount of snowfall, we are getting to the streets fairly quickly. And I think that's also been reflected in the last 24 to 48 hours. And so, very appreciative with regard to that. I did just want to agree with the point that you made about 311, where I think we got into some frustration from residents was, when we're 24 or 36 hours out of the snow stopping, folks, had put in an online request or several, or had called and then had thought that would move them up in the line and said, well, I put that in 12 hours ago. Why is my street still not plowed? They must have forgotten about me. So they haven't forgotten about you, but everyone's in the same line, right? You're not cutting a line. And so, I definitely do encourage, if, for the future, once we've decided to plow every street, definitely think it's prudent to let folks know that and not, give them an option that makes them think they're cutting the line or changes their expectations. But, there were very few missed streets. And so that's, the conversation I had with Mr. Hall, is that we're not going to know what streets we've missed until we get through priority 3. But once we got through priority 3, it was very clear there were very few of them. So, and then also agree with the point about the map. If we're able to put some kind of front-facing map that shows the progress that we're making, I think, again, it would help folks who they're looking out their window and saying, well, I'm still not plowed, but they can't see that, almost everything around them is being plowed. So, with that being said, I do just want to thank everyone who was involved. It's an immense amount of snow, as many of us, our shovels bore that out. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just ditto on saying thank you to everyone that responded. Yourself, Chris, Mr. Hall, Mr. Lash, I appreciate that. One of the things I'd like to know is if we can get the numbers on what did we spend on overtime during this. What did it cost us to pull workers from other departments to go out and shovel sidewalks? Had a conversation with Mr. Vassilotti, the athletic director for Akron Public Schools. Anytime we close our schools, we've got able-bodied young men and women sitting at home. Where if we created a community engagement piece, these people could go behind the trucks and shovel aprons. Because one of the big problems was, when we did our part as a city, shoveling the streets, people were trapped in their, in their driveways. I think it was Mr. Lash, but it may have been Mr. Hall. I had one resident that was confined to a wheelchair, had dialysis. He had shoveled his street. The city had plowed he had shoveled his sidewalk, his driveway. The city had plowed the street. but he had all this snow at the end of his driveway. His dialysis transportation couldn't get to him, and him being in a wheelchair, he couldn't get to them. It's only by the grace of God that we haven't had something serious. You know, last time when it happened in 2019, it was the ambulances, fire trucks, buses getting stuck. And it's nature, you know, it's nothing but I think what I saw and what I really appreciate, and it happened in our community, even though the paper highlighted some communities outside of ours. When I went down Roslyn hadn't been plowed. There were residents that went out and rented a Bobcat to move snow. There were other people want to get engaged, but the problem is being able to coordinate all of that. And so I know I shared with you how College Park, Maryland, and matter of fact, Columbus does the same thing. Residents, the way their website is set up, they could follow the trucks and see what street has been plowed, when, and where. Because one of my concerns is when residents call me and ask for a truck to come to the street. I know that we're going to get to them when we can. And my concern is that truck driving from one side of my ward or from another ward to hit that street, missing all the streets in between, and we've got these people zigzagging back and forth. I think if we can really have where all of council is together, and we can talk about how our wards worked through this, we can create a citizen engagement piece to support the city so that when we plow a street, if schools are closed, we can have teams that go behind and hit those aprons, those that have medical waivers, and people that call. That's the challenging piece, being able to coordinate what we do. We have an asset that's untapped. There's a way for it to be a win-win for them and a win-win for us. And then, and I think we can save the city a lot of money looking at where we pull people from one thing to shovel. That's why I like to have those costs. So we can look at, as we talked about when we had the conversation about reimagining how we govern, defunding the police. We all know it's not about defunding, it's about how can we reallocate resources. Last but not least, one of the concerns, I know, and I appreciate Mr. Lash giving me the numbers, 2,600 plus, it probably was more than that. 311 calls, I believe over 1,000 of them came from Ward 4. But one of the concerns I got from folks was that they didn't get a call back when they were told they were going to get a call back. And I know we were overwhelmed, but anyone that's in business, city kind of has a captured audience, but I mean, customer services is so key. I don't know if we've had a chance to call every one of those back. I think we do. And then last but not least, well, I'll stop there. Again, thank you. But I do want to say from what I've heard from folks, if we create a citizen engagement piece, there's a way to get to really assist the city at, if nothing else, on those apron calls. And in our business districts where they weren't plowed, we can have engagement teams help us shovel those sidewalks.
Okay. Just real quick, Madam Chair, I just want to address one thing to Councilman. On this particular event, with the amount of snow we had, we didn't have water and sewer shoveling or the contractors. We needed like big loaders, okay, backhoes and dump trucks, because there was nowhere to shovel the snow and put it. It was just so high. So they were actually going in and loading out the snow. So they weren't getting right down to the bare pavement, but they were getting it down within an inch, and they were digging out those big piles, putting them in dump trucks and taking them and dumping. But your idea, we can talk about getting citizen engagement, but the people that we use were just loading out those huge piles of snows, because even if you shoveled, there was nowhere to put it. Okay, it was just so high. So just to clear that up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Before I go to Councilman Fusco, I do want to say that I did see on the news last night that they stated that the city of Akron was one of those municipalities that is working on the tracking system for the trucks. So I know that's come up a few times, but they did address that on the news last night. Councilman Fusco?
Thank you. I'll be extremely brief. I just want to thank the men and women, like everybody else, who worked on this from the top to the bottom. The one piece of it is, though, is I know as a result of COVID, there was a time whenever we worked with the judicial system and misdemeanors and such, they would go out and and shovel our bridges and such, and did some shoveling. But since COVID, we've disbanded that program. So that's part of the equation, I do believe. But I just want to say one thing, and that is, having been around this for some time and worked in those offices on the second floor, the adjustments that were made from 19 to 22, those adjustments paid off, I think, clearly. Whenever you said, I think someone said, you compare the 19 to 22 and the volume of snow that we got. And I was pleasantly surprised whenever I heard we were in the residentials on Tuesday morning, like 2 a.m. or something. I was kind of blown away given how much we were hit with. So seems like we made all the right moves, but I do appreciate Mr. Cullen's comment for, we must always continuously try to improve. So thanks.
Councilman Fusco, one quick update to your court system. The restitution, instead of paying restitution, they work it off. So Director Lash and myself have a meeting with Judge Cable. We've scheduled that to try to institute that program to help those workers and obviously help us too. So we have a meeting coming up in the next few days.
Is this stalls? It's just the cost. It doesn't have any markup, correct?
You better mute him.
He's muted. Councilwoman Amovian. You're muted, Linda.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to say kudos to Mr. Lotto and his staff and all the folks that participated. And I think you've already answered the question about putting something on the website. So thanks a lot for all you've done.
I appreciate everything, but obviously it's not me. It's all those men and women out there plowing for all those hours. I've sat in a truck for a few hours. I can honestly say I've never plowed for 16. I just can't imagine bouncing around a truck for 16. Even though we've paved a lot of roads, there's still some rough ones out there. So they get all the credit.
Right. Councilwoman Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Luddle, I just want to touch back to something you said much earlier so we can kind of clarify something for the public. You mentioned the task of trying to knock back snow piles and clear intersections around schools. And I want to thank you because you helped make that happen around the King Learning Center on Friday. And that was kind of a scary situation. And between you and APD, we were able to make that situation a lot safer. But I think that there is a common misunderstanding that I've been trying to sort of straighten out in Ward 1, which is that the city is not generally in the business of shoveling sidewalks. And I don't want us to get into a bar exam question here or a discourse on that particular ordinance, but would love it if you could provide sort of a quick primer on sidewalks and where the city is taking care of this, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Loading out the snow in around those schools and business districts was the most efficient way to do it in a timely manner. It is the responsibility of the business owner or the homeowner to shovel that sidewalk. With that being said, we have a lot of residents where their doctor is going to recommend don't touch that shovel. It's a tough thing to do. Can we get community buy-in to help with that? And how do we prioritize that? I could tell you this. I live on North Hill, and Phil's the council person. We all know North Hill. We all know North High School. That bridge needs to be shoveled off on Route 8, especially on the north side. Those children walk right down there, okay? What the construction we did with Talmadge Avenue has helped. It slowed people down, but still, I hate to say it, but this morning there was children walking on the bridge. That's not safe. So the thing that Councilman Fusco talked about, that's a prime example. If we can help get some people, whether it's work release, and instead of them paying something, work off that restitution, that's one of the things that we would do is clean those bridges and clean those sidewalks. But I thought, I'm sure it's going to come up, so I might as well say it, the parking ban, how do we enforce it? How do we, I'm thinking very general, there might have been 100 cars per ward. That's 1,000 cars. It's probably low, okay? There's no way we could have towed them in this event. But what I want to do, instead of focusing on it, I want to thank all the residents that did move their cars, because there was a lot that moved their cars off the street. And I want to thank them for doing that, because that did help. Because, it's snowing, you're up in that truck, you're tired. The last thing you want to do is go around a car or plow a car in, but you just have to get the streets clear. So, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for touching on that, Chris, because I know that was definitely an issue on some streets where people just didn't move their cars, and it did cause some grief. But, I mean, there was a parking ban, and everybody knew about it. So, it was on the news, it was on social media. We seen press releases, so to me it's like it was hard not to know that there was a parking ban. Before I go to Councilman Neal, I do want to make sure that I publicly thank the service workers, because I know this, it's hard when you're constantly getting beat up by your residents all over social media for just doing your job, and I think that they did an efficient job. This compared to 2019, they were night and day. And in 2019, I'm sure, along with myself and my colleagues, we got so many calls and emails in 2019, it became overwhelming. I didn't experience that this time. I did get quite a few, and those streets were handled, and I made sure I expressed to the residents, just like you call us and tell us about the street not being plowed, let us know when it's been plowed, so then we don't think it's still hanging out there. And I think that we as residents have to do a better job of that, so we don't feel like we're sending the workers back to a street that's already been plowed. And I know that happened on a couple streets, so I want to make sure that they are thanked for their hard work. And Councilman Neal, do you have anything?
No, I'll talk to Mr. Leto offline. Thank you.
Okay. So if we don't have any other questions, I will go straight into our legislation.
Madam Chair, just real quick on the electric
Yes,
and the water. I guess
Yes.
Councilman Howland would like an update there.
Yes, please
Saturday
do.
morning about 8 a.m., Akron Children's called and they said it looks like you may have a water main break on Center Street between Bowery and Dart. I just happened to be coming downtown. I don't make it a habit to chase water main breaks. Believe me, it was kind of just so happened I was coming downtown. I got there, and lo and behold, water was already there. They're already on top of it. The young man was there. He said, listen, this line here it's just a loop line. I can shut it off at Dart. I can shut it off at Center, Bowery. I could shut off at Bowery and Dart. I could isolate this line. It probably fed the old AAA, the other buildings there. We can backfeed around the hospital. No one will know the difference. So he did. I left. They called back and they had 2 water mains they were going to fix on Saturday. Hour and a half later, they called and said, guess what? That 16-inch water main, 1928 vintage, undermined the road, and then the road caved in. So now we issue our forces by 9:30. Excuse me, my computer just did something weird. By 9:30, we had a crew on site. They excavated down. They pumped out the water out of the hole. It was a 16, the pipe looked in great condition, but just one piece popped right out. They cut out that section of pipe, put a new section of pipe in, 2 sleeves, and by 2:30, the repair was made. They started filling it, and I don't know if you can see me, but my computer's acting up. Anyway, they start backfilling the hole. We got a call that there were some frozen gas lines. Gas companies showed up. Evidently, when we excavated, the gas line was right on top of our water line. We never smelled gas. We never seen any void in the gas line. And we do that every day. I mean, not we, but they, water department, they work around gas lines. And if there would be one leaking, they would call the gas company. So there was no sign that this gas line was leaking. Evidently, our water from the main break got into that gas line somewhere. And with those extreme temperatures, when the gas line came out of the ground at these buildings, it froze and it filled up the gas line. So the gas company's been out there around the clock, excavating, blowing out the water line, out of the gas line. They've abandoned that gas line that was on that road. It was one not even used. So they went back and dug up the road at Bowery and Center, and they capped off that line near our water main repair. They've put people up in hotels. They've been in contact the whole way through. They have restored the hospitals. And all it was their kitchens, because the heat for both hospitals, as you know, is from our steam plant. So that didn't affect their heating. It did affect their cooking. Ronald McDonald House was out, but they had electric in the rooms. That it's been restored. The AMHA building has been restored. I'd like to thank Metro Bus. They did pick up some people and take them to our warming centers that we had open over the weekend due to temperatures. So that worked out very well. But the gas company is going to be there. They're going to be there a couple more days. They're working with people. I know they have more hotel rooms rented for tonight. I can't speak to that. They have put out some press releases. Generally speaking, that's where we're at with that one. Yesterday morning, fire department sent me something about 8 o'clock that manhole on Main and Market had a lot of smoke coming out of it. Fire department was deployed. There was an underground fire in the First Energy vault. Fire brought some foam down, extinguished it. There was still smoke. They were trying to evacuate the smoke. They worked on it most of the morning. Fire department came back with some water to flush out all the foam. Then all that foam was sucked out of those manholes so people could go in. This vault, I'm being told by First Energy, will be abandoned in Main Street Phase 2 as part of the upgrades, and it will not be used. They just haven't, unfortunately, they hadn't got to these upgrades in Phase 2 yet with this circuit. So there's 3 major circuits downtown, obviously 1, 2, and 3. Circuit 2 is the one that's compromised. Circuits 1 and 3 were restored, as you said, just a few minutes ago. So we have power back here in the building. And they are going to, that circuit 2, no one will know the difference. Downtown could really run a 1, but 2 is optimum, and then 3 is pretty much like a backup. So First Energy, I'm sure will be putting something out about that. I don't want to go too farther into the details on what happened. I'll let them speak to that, just like the gas company. I'll let them speak to that. But as you know, we had 2 water main breaks yesterday, one on Larchmouth and one, I'm not sure where the other street is. And when we excavate down, we see gas lines all the time. We have to be careful we don't hit them. But this happened over there was kind of a freak thing, what happened over there by the hospital.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. If nothing further, I'll go to our 2 pieces. Oh, Councilwoman Holland. Yeah, unmute, Nance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to thank Mr. Luddle again for being in touch with me over the weekend. It was really something, and hats off to Dominion and Ohio Edison for being in close touch with me. I feel that Akron has lived under a lucky star for about the past 8 or 9 days. If you're going to have an epic snowstorm, have it on a Sunday night with a holiday the following day and no school. And similarly, if you're going to have on one end of downtown a gas problem and at the other end an electrical problem, certainly do that over a weekend. And at a time when many people are working remotely. I did have and still do have some mild concern, although both utilities reached out to all known customers. I learned just a little bit ago of a couple of residential customers, gas customers, who had sort of fallen through the cracks because they were tenants and were not made aware directly of the offer of hotel accommodations. So I'm just going to take this moment to let everybody involved in this meeting know that there is an ongoing offer of accommodations for anybody who did not directly receive that offer, and make myself available to help put an affected residential person in touch with those who have that information available. Truly a remarkable offer and amenity for those affected. And what a relief that the hospitals were both able to continue functioning as they were, and the Ronald McDonald House too. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Alrighty, seeing none, I will go to our legislation. Our first piece is an ordinance determining to proceed with the improvement of Copley Road between the termini of Mercer Avenue and Trigonia Drive, South Maple Street between the termini of Trigonia Drive and Glendale Avenue, Manchester Road between the termini of East Avenue and Wilworth Road, and East Avenue between the termini of Vernon Odom Boulevard and Manchester Road by resurfacing and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lettle? Chris, are you there? I think you're frozen.
Mr. Little, do you want to try to leave the meeting and come back in? Sometimes that helps.
Yeah, I think that's what he just did.
Sorry about that. We're probably having problems with our internet. Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Obviously, this is the last piece of this this resurfacing. It covers 4 wards. It's about 4 miles. ODOT resurfacing project. We had the Assessment Legalization Board hearing. We only had one person object. The hearing gave a recommendation. We approved that recommendation. So we're ready to proceed with this project, give them the authorization. Construction of this will happen, they're telling us sometime in May of this year, of 2022.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? Seeing none, what's your pleasure, Mr. Little?
The consent's fine.
Okay, can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Our next and final piece is ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts for the relocation and construction of a new Akron Fire Station number 12, located at 11112 South Hawkins Avenue, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can give a real brief overview, but I know Deputy Mayor Brown is on, and I believe there may be some Akron fire personnel on also. So when we start talking about issue 4, this fire station obviously was one of the top ones we talked about. The adjusted posts in the basement. And for you, obviously, I think all of you know where this fire station is currently on West Market, right by just a little bit west of Acme number 1 across the street. This new fire station will be built on Hawkins, around the corner, on just south of Wallhaven, there on property we own. We've got 2 packages going out about this fire station. The first one will be the site work. We did get a very favorable bid on this price. little bit under the engineer's estimate. There'll be some excavation that has to be done, undercut. For you that are familiar with that area, there's a lot of peat moss. So they'll dig all that out, put in stone, so we could put this fire station there without doing any retention underground for stormwater. That would all be built into the site. It'll all be, we won't see any of that. There won't be a retention pond exposed or anything like that. So the existing fire station is 7,000 square feet. The new one is about 15,000 square feet. It'll have the police community room. Actually, I want to turn it over to Fire or Director Brown. They could talk about the station itself.
Yeah, I think I seen Chief Tucker on here somewhere. There he goes. So I don't know if Deputy Brown or Chief Tucker are going to speak to this.
I can just let Chief Tucker go ahead and start the conversation.
Thank you, sir. This station is, as Mr. Little had said, is going to replace Station 12, which is the station on West Market Street. That station has been having the floor supported by temporary supports for well over a decade now. And so it's something that with issue 4, it was one of our major stations that needed to be replaced because of not only the area it serves, but the condition of the floor potentially being dangerous for our fire trucks to be above it. So we've done what we could to make that building last as long as we can, and it's something that really needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Brown, would you like to add to that?
Just one thing, Madam Chair, is that there will be an office and for the police folks working in that area, just like it is over at station number 2 on East Exchange in Arlington area. So just wanted to mention that as well, but we'll be available any questions that you may have. And if you give us a favorable report, we would ask for suspension of the rules.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? I see Councilman Malik has a question.
Not a question so much as a comment, but thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to thank Deputy Mayor Brown, Chief Tucker, and the Akron Fire Department for the responsiveness in getting details about this. You know, this has kind of been a long time coming with issue 4, as has been stated, and I know a lot of residents in the West Side are excited to see this. So really excited that we're gonna break ground this year and hopefully have it completed fairly soon. So just hope that we can move on this quickly, and appreciate all the information about it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Malik. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been a while since we've had some conversations, but I think I heard Mr. Luttle state this. My concern is, you know, Wesley Towers is across the street. I know that development, they had to drive pylons down to secure the apartment, and their parking lot, they've had to do some things to kind of like support it because, as it was stated, it's on peat moss. That area of Hawkins even sinks. So my concern is the soil samples. Do we know, I mean, about, because you're gonna have these heavy trucks and everything, are we gonna have to drive the pylons under? I don't know if the river that runs underneath runs through that part of the area. It's just a lot of variables that, location is great. But I know when we had the conversation a while back, we had even talked about seeing if we could secure some of that land, and it may have peat moss under it too, back there where the retail establishment is, and that parking area just sits, you know, vacant, so to speak, just to, so we wouldn't have the potential of the problems like they had when they built Wesley Tower, having to drive pylons, the sinking parking lot, and that part of Hawkins has that dip there because it sinks, and we're talking about heavy trucks going in there every day. And just want to make sure that we are looking at all of that before we make this investment?
Sure. I can address that, Madam Chair. We,
Okay.
we did do quite a few soil borings, as Councilman Neal stated, that needed to be done. And that peat moss, from the start of the site going west, okay, it's like a shelf. So out by the street, it's pretty deep. And with those, the soil borings we did, it's 13 feet deep. So all that 13 feet will be excavated out, and that will all be filled in with stone, engineered stone. And as you go back to the site, the peat moss is shallower and shallower and shallower. So all that will be dug out. The stone will be brought in, kind of what they did to Swenson's. Okay, they had to dig that out, bring in stone, and then build it onto that. Now, as you go to the east, the street, and across the street, it's a lot deeper over there. So we did look at that. Obviously, we picked that site because we owned it. We picked that site, then we said, we got to watch what we're doing. So we did those soil borings to do our due diligence. We did an estimate on how much it would take to dig all that out, bring stone in, and then the one benefit of this is we won't have to relocate the personnel. We can get this site built, just like we did Station 4, and then move the men and women right around the corner. So we're very confident that we aren't going to have a problem with this site, Councilman Neal. But thank you for the question.
Councilwoman Amobian, did she log off? I know her hand was up.
It looks like she did.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, I have a quick question. A few years back, we had a developer that came in and was trying to build housing over that way. Is this close to that same site?
It's a little bit north of that site.
Okay.
October was going to build that residential development, yes.
Okay, I was
A little bit
wondering.
north. Yep.
Okay, it seemed a little familiar. Okay, so can I get a motion for suspension of rules?
So moved.
Make a mess. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay. If we have nothing else coming before us, we are adjourned.
We can move right into the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, Mosley, Lombardo, Malik, and McKittrick. We do have all committee members present. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I'd like to call a public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present. We do need to approve our last meeting minutes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We do have one new piece in front of us today. It's authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts with Pierce Manufacturing, Inc. for the purchase of one Pierce fire pumper truck and one Pierce 75-foot ladder truck at declared emergency. And I know we have a few members on, and I'll start with Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, Charles Brown. Or did he leave? Oh,
I'm here. Thank you for your patience. Just this piece of legislation is a request for the purchase of a new engine 7 and a new ladder 9. For engine 7, it's $522,110,000, and that reflects a prepaid discount. Price reflects a prepaid discount of $14,000. And some change. And then the other piece of apparatus, ladder 9, that price is $967,000 and $825,000. That reflects a prepaid discount of $30,000. We're hoping to get these prices through by January 1st because there's a price increase of $54,000 for ladder 9 and $23,000 and some change for engine 7. So I'm sure, I can't see them, but I think Chief Tucker and Deputy Chief Twig is on the call, and we will be available for any questions. And again, a quick reminder that I'd like to get this through by January 31st. So I respectfully request suspension of the rules, and thank you.
all right, thank you. Chief, do you have anything to add before I take questions or comments?
Actually, I'd like to defer to District Chief O'Neill. He's also.
Sure. O'Neill?
Hey, thanks, everybody. Like the deputy mayor said, this is for engine 7, ladder 9. Both these trucks have pretty much exceeded their frontline service life. They'll both be moved into reserve status. That'll allow us to move a couple trucks that have been around a long time, a 1991 pumper and a 1996 ladder, remove them from service, which is important as far as NFPA goes. Outside of that, any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. I'm sure I have it for you if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chair, Chief O'Neill, could you explain what NFPA is? They may not know what that means.
So that's National Fire Protection Association. It's basically standards that kind of guide the fire service. And there's different standards for different aspects of the fire service. This particular one is NFPA 1901, which has to do with fire trucks and fire apparatus. And they've developed standards that say 15 years of frontline service and 10 additional years of second line service. It's kind of the standard if you have a truck that's in good operating condition. There's standards that kind of affect all different aspects of the fire service that come through NFPA, but it's basically our guiding body as far as standards go for us.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Let's see, questions or comments? Committee members, we got Councilman Malik, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brown. Thank you, District Chief O'Neill. 2 questions. First, do we know how long it will take for us to come into possession of the vehicles? And 2, I believe this is being paid for using income tax. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's IT4 money. And as far as when we're going to take possession, building fire trucks is no different than any other industry right now with supply chain issues. Typically, this is a 300-day process. Right now, we're looking at about 16 months. So, and we always wait a long time for a fire truck. I mean, the whole process usually takes a year from order to when we have it in service. This is looking more like 16 months from when we get the order in to when it actually go into service. So it's it's quite a journey. It takes a while.
Yeah, and I appreciate, that it's a reminder that these global trends have a lot of impacts on our day-to-day, work. So thank you for that information.
I think the biggest thing, and the Deputy Mayor Brown mentioned it, is this January 31st deadline. Because of steel prices, everything's bumping up come January 31st. So we save $77,000 if we can get this in, this week. So that's kind of what we're working toward.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything else? Any other committee members? Council members? I don't see any. Obviously, we all know that suspension of the rules is favorable here, so I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll present that this evening and pass it. And with that, nothing else come before us. We are adjourned. Public safety is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Utilities and Green Committee. Those committee members are Freeman, McKittrick, Connor, Mosley, and Holland. We do have all members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll call the Public Utilities and Green Committee meeting to order. And for the record, we do have all members present. If I could have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks, each and every one of you. We have one item, and that would be an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the master meter agreement with the County of Summit and other master meter communities, amending and or supplementing Title 5, Public Works, Chapter 50, Sewers, Section 50.22, Sewer Service Charges of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Akron to amend sewer service charges for all master meter customers and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lovell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Back in, I believe it was 2016, we presented this agreement. Now this is amendment 4 years later for the master meter communities. We went through an extensive rate analysis. We are a little behind of passing this legislation, but the rates before the legislation are being paid at that rate. So there is an increase to the communities. Basically, we used Raftellus to do the rate analysis, and then the county and these municipalities, which is Talmadge, Lakemore, and Cuyahoga Falls, used Raftellus also. They agreed with our analysis of these rates. They basically pay for transportation and treatment. These stations are monitored to calibration, and they also monitor for strength. So if there is if the influent would have a high strength of something, then there is a charge that's built into the rate above and beyond this rate. So with that, I could tell you this, that all these municipalities have taken these rates to their effective councils. They've all passed. We wanted to bring this to you a couple of weeks ago, and we had a little problem with the numbers, and we've straightened that out. So the legislation before you reflects the numbers. So with that, I will take any questions. And I would like to suspend the rules since they already passed theirs a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, very good. Hey, repeat, Chris, if you would please repeat the communities again.
Talmadge, Springfield. Well, Montrose. There's 3 meters the county maintains. Is the Montrose meter, Mudbrook, which is down in the valley, and then Springfield. Those are all managed by the county. So that's one municipality. Then Talmadge has master meters. Cuyahoga Falls has master meters, and then Lakemore has master meters.
Okay, thank you. All right, looking to see any hands. Might there be any questions? I do not see any hands, but I could be missing something. Sarah, am I missing anyone?
Do not see any hands raised. Oh, I see that Councilman Malik just raised his hand.
Okay. Councilman Malik, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Luddle. 2 questions. First, would it be possible to get some of that supporting information regarding the rate analysis that you mentioned?
I think we could do that, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then can you kind of delve into the difference between the kind of actual effective rate and the rate stated in the table there?
Well, since we didn't get these rates passed, we had an agreement that the effective rate would reflect the increase. So basically, the effective rate we don't want to call it a catch up, but they're paying an effective rate so we can go back to 2020 and capture all those charges since this legislation was not passed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Looking around, I believe you said that you would have a preference of suspension of the rules.
That way we can get going on this since they've already passed their legislation, sir.
Sure, very good. Okay, so looking for a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, very good. It's hard to believe it's been 2016 since I didn't realize it had been that long, but thank you for this, Mr. Luddle. And if we have no other business to come before us, we'll call ourselves adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is our final committee meeting of the day. We do have a capital budget review session scheduled for 3:30, which is just about 15 minutes away. So we will end our live stream and be back at 3:30 for capital budget review.